Desperate war propagandists are now calling me a Holocaust denier. Wow. PBS and The Guardian, so far that I know of, have suddenly come out calling me a Holocaust denier and fake human rights activist. Here's a clip from PBS.
Manufacturing this Ebola outbreak.
It describes a Holocaust denier as a human rights activist.
Russia is a threat to the U.S.'s hegemony.
And a neo-Nazi as a German expert.
Germany is a country which supports violent Islamism.
The criticism is, again, that you're trying to confuse rather than inform.
No, that's absolutely
who's trying to confuse rather than inform? That's you, bud. I don't know who that other guy was who they accused of being a neo-Nazi, because I don't recognize his face and they didn't put his name up there. But I know who I am, and ironically, that interview was called Tanks But No Tanks. It was about Ukraine, and in that interview, I actually denounced the neo-Nazis, the Stefan Bandera movement. So it's so funny that the clip they chose to use where I am denouncing neo-Nazis is the same one that they're going to say I'm a Holocaust denier in, that is called a human rights activist. I am a human rights activist, motherfucker. And then The Guardian wrote, Holocaust revisionist with scare quotes, which implies denier or revisionist. Both would be wrong. This libel started with a fellow named Adam Holland from the Interpreter mag, a career Zionist who smeared people like Cynthia McKinney, Ron Paul, Scott Horton, Glenn Greenwald, Max Blumenthal. He's got a long list of people he can't stand. Basically, anybody's a libertarian, anti-war, or goes against the Zionist agenda. And the ironic thing is, the guy that's going around calling people racist and anti-Semitic or Holocaust deniers is actually supporting real neo-Nazis in Ukraine because he's totally anti-Russia. Of course, Israel and Russia are butting heads because, one, they're competing over exports of gas. Israel's put in $3.5 billion for this pipeline through Cyprus already for exports of gas as an alternative to Russian gas, but mainly it's because of Syria. Now, this Adam Holland character I addressed back in 2014 after he wrote all this garbage about me, and it seemed to go away. But like a Ron Paul newsletter, they just regurgitate this garbage whenever they feel it's convenient. The timing of this resurgence seems to be motivated by the state's disdain that they have failed in their plans for Syria. They blame this on Russian media and alternative media for debunking their war party lies in real time. The PR mistake for the Vietnam War was not controlling the networks, and the PR mistake for the current wars has been the internet, which allows access to foreign news. Of course, the best they could come up with is to just call everyone they don't like a Nazi, which is what they did. Accusations like that are as bad as being called a rapist. In fact, it's worse, because a rapist could probably still work in Hollywood or DC. The purpose of the smear is to smear the networks that I've been on, like RT, and any guest I've ever had on my show, all of whom would be anti-war. The Guardian smear job called me a Holocaust revisionist with the word revisionist in scare quotes, which implies denier. I've never professed to be either one. My show is called the Anti-Neocon Report, and it focuses on modern issues probably 90% of the time. Now and then I'll go back and talk about the Civil War or IranContra or something in history that's affecting today. Rarely do we talk about World War II. But even more insulting than that was how they tried to lump me in with Alex Jones and David Duke. See, Duke was on Alex's show, and Maram Sicily was on Alex's show, and Ted Postal was on my show and referenced Sicily, so by the magic of liberal logic, I'm now somehow in with David Duke and Alex Jones. I don't know anything much about David Duke other than that he's a white separatist and believes in racial determination. He's one of those goofy bell curve types. And as terrible as that is, I found the Alex Jones Association much more offensive, as even a bigot like Duke does not try to imply that no children died at Sandy Hook or the government is using earthquake machines to cause tsunami. He's relatively calm compared to the sack of unwashed hemorrhoids that is Alex Jones. I hate Alex Jones deeply, and I have expressed that many times. He's been to the Woodshed, a series I do breaking people down, more than any other person. I can't think of two people more opposite than myself than these two who capitalize on paranoia. This trite racist baloney is bad enough, but Jones is on a whole unique level of stupid with his rants about Luciferian cults and interdimensional psychic vampires. The guy has his followers microwaving $20 bills to destroy the secret RFID chips. I can't think of two characters who are more damning to have on your team and to poison the well and discredit everything you might say than Duke and Alex Jones. One's a racist, the other is a mentally ill water filter salesman, pants shitter news addict. The government could not invent a better pair to use as guilt by association weapons. And I've tried to debate both of these guys, and of course, both were scared to do it. Here's the reality behind the Russia hate. Russia ruined the Zionist ambitions in Syria. And our media is Zio-central. They are so Israeli-centric. They can't even admit that Palestine is under occupation. They call the settlements neighborhoods. And I mean, they don't even go there. They just, whatever happens, it starts with Palestinian violence. It always starts in the middle because Israel has a massive unregistered lobby and Palestine doesn't. Israel has lots of money flowing into Congress and Palestine doesn't. And once you have that lobby, once you can lobby yourself money, that cycle can go on for infinity because you can enrich yourself with government wealth and then create a large donor class that then props up all these other organizations that have your political ideology who then go and lobby and bribe more money, and it's a vicious circle. And that's what's going on. That is it. That is why they have so much control over the U.S. And the media, of course, obeys the state. They're cheerleaders for every war. So you have that going on. But what's going on here is that ISIS has been defeated because Russia has allied with Syria. And that's the topic that The Guardian brought up. They wanted to act like Assad gassed his own people. They say it over and over again, and it just doesn't work anymore. The covert ISIS supporters have lost in Syria and Iraq, and they're very bitter. Without Russian air support and media, the Assad must go crowd would not have been defeated. The mass media lost to alternative media. They lost, and they're so butthurt about it. They were discredited so badly with the Iraq War, and they tried to peddle lies about Syria, and not enough people believed them. And because they could access RT or ANC Report or any other alternative news source that tells the truth on these issues, they were just not going to fall for the war propaganda. And they didn't. And so now they're calling us Holocaust deniers. anything they can. Racism, sexism, xenophobic. They did all that with Putin. He hates gay people. He hates Pussy Riot. He's against women. He's every ism imaginable to foster the SJW crowd, who, by the way, are a bunch of closet communists that were supporting the Kurds and SDF in Syria. Hook, line, and sinker, they fell for it. But people who are not Islamaholics saw through that everyone's a Nazi BS, which they also tried to do to Trump because Trump did not agree with their policy on Syria. That's what that was about. But last July, after a meeting with Putin, Trump cut off all CIA funding to covert support for moderate rebels, which we all know was just an intermedium for ISIS. As recently as the Battle of Raqqa, the U.S. was protecting their proxy forces and facilitating an escape for ISIS officers, most likely Saudi and Israeli assets. They hired truckers to caravan them out of there. But with the US out of the way, only the SDF or the B team proxies remain in Syria to attempt to balkanize, which is also Plan B. ISIS was effectively defeated in a matter of months. As I predicted, without Hillary and Kerry and Barack Obama running the State Department and the presidency, they could not facilitate the weapons and aid that these terrorists need, and they quickly fell apart. American and British media tried as hard as they could to drive a wedge between Russia and themselves. Democrats even blamed America's voting for Trump, or in many cases just voting against Hillary, on the Russians. They blamed it on Russia hacking the election. And by that they mean sharing some of Hillary's dirty secrets to the public. You heard that right. Instead of being mad at the crook, they're mad at whoever told on her. And this is why they're going to lose the next election too. I'm surprised the US didn't give ISIS helicopters and say, oh, but these are just for transportation. It's part of the non-lethal aid. That's what they did with scores of Toyota Hilux trucks. And you see ISIS in all the same brand name truck, all new, all with the same paint job. And the US media tries to play stupid as if ISIS built those trucks themselves, or some car dealership just happened to have hundreds of white Toyota Hilux pickup trucks of the same year in mass ready to sell. Those vehicles were already there because this insurrection was planned a long time ago. It's not some organic protest or Arab Spring, a fancy rebranding of the color-coded revolutions. Let's rewind a little. This is how this works. And here's a known conspiracy. All throughout the 80s, the CIA, in tandem with foreign governments like Israel, used a variety of black markets such as weapons sales, narcotics, and running contraband through the embargo on Iran to covertly finance a proxy force of mercenaries in Nicaragua. It was called IranContra. And many of the same goobers involved in that are alive today. They were the same people who were architects for the Iraq War and peddling these lies about Syria. The entire time this was going on, uniformly, the government and the media denounced the Contras as they were chopping off heads, chopping off hands, using child soldiers, and get this, they even executed an American journalist on TV. Sounds a lot like ISIS, doesn't it? Publicly, the US was against the Contras. Congress would not allow the US military to invade Central America. But privately, the US was training, arming, and financing the Contras the entire time. Tens of thousands of people were killed in the war, and who knows how many died from the drug cartels that the CIA turned into billionaires. Syria really is IranContra 2.0. Only this time, there's the internet. We did not have to wait for a CIA plane to crash filled with illegal cargo. Also during this time, the US had another proxy force in Afghanistan of freedom fighters, now known as Al-Qaeda. And this was financed via Saudi money laundering through a series of regional banks and, of course, opium. It's almost identical to today. Syria is a combination of both tactics. And it's the same partners, Israel and Saudi Arabia. In Syria, Russia foiled the plot. Yet the West cannot openly say, hey, don't kill ISIS and al-Nusra Front, don't kill Al-Qaeda, those are our terrorist networks that we've been using since the 80s. So they try everything from Pussy Riot to hacked elections to decrying Putin as the next Hitler, one of their favorite tactics, to cause distrust for Russian media. They are scared to death of a news source with wide dissemination that they can't control. And I can tell you that every time I was ever on RT, they did not tell me what to say. They did not censor what I said or change what I said. I can't say the same thing for other outlets. So now I've got PBS and The Guardian two of what I thought were lesser bad MSN outlets, alluding that I'm a Holocaust denier. What the fuck? I've been an anti-war, human rights advocate my entire adult life. Of the thousands of videos and audio interviews I've done, only two guys ever talked about the Holocaust from the revisionist standpoint: David Cole Stein and Eric Hunt. Cole was an ex-revisionist who sincerely changed his mind as he came upon new evidence. People still think he's faking that. People also think Sandy Hook was fake, so there's no controlling stupid. The plan was to have Cole and Hunt debate, and I was going to moderate as both of them would trust me to be fair, which I would have been. Well, it never happened for reasons that I don't feel like explaining. I don't have the energy to do it. But suffice it to say, using Cole's arguments to bolster my own, I actually converted Eric Hunt. That was mostly Cole's research and my patience, since he doesn't have any of that. It's ironic. As a lifetime Zionist and Jew, people assume that David Cole could have never been a revisionist. As a lifetime anti-Zionist, some people assume that maybe I'd be warm to revisionist. Why would I be? And I would not say that not wanting to throw people in jail equates to, okay, then you believe in Holocaust denial. I don't like Antifa or communists or racial separatists or religious fanatics or people who talk in the theater, but I don't advocate throwing them in jail for what I consider to just be being stupid. You shouldn't jail people for historical opinion. That's a free speech issue. I don't deny the Holocaust, and I'm not a revisionist. My World War II forte is in the Pacific theater. I even live in Japan and speak Japanese. I do take issue with the word the in the Holocaust. How was nuking 2 civilian cities, which is death by fire, not considered Holocaust? Was it because the Allies did it? The U.S. war machine has killed millions of people since World War II. The U.S. is always looking for and accusing people of being the new Hitlers. It should look in the mirror. That's what I see as the real motive here to smear me. They are trying this degrees of Kevin Bacon tactic. This guy on this show had this other guy who knows a guy who said these bad things. Therefore, every association he's ever made is a Nazi who kicks puppies and robs babies. It's guilt by association and fabrication. If I had the money, I'd sue all of them. But in the US and UK, they don't really have a legal system for poor people. The initial capital it takes for a lawyer effectively disqualifies poor people from risking litigation because it's too expensive, and it's based realistically on who has more money, not on who has the better argument or is telling the truth. But I'm pretty sure that I'm an expert on knowing my own thoughts, and I'm not a Holocaust denier or a revisionist of World War II. Early American colonization, sure. Civil War, sure. I don't claim to be an expert on World War II. And let the record show that I have written to The Guardian and PBS and pointed out the crap they said. And to this date, they have not responded. It's very damaging to my character to hurl an accusation like that. If I'm trying to get a guest on my show and they Google my name and the first thing that pops up is Adam Holland's hit piece calling me a Holocaust denier, or worse, the SPLC, which said that I said that Judaism advocates cannibalism and child rape. What the hell? When people write that kind of crap about you, and yeah, everyone that's listened to me for years knows better, but I'm talking about new people who don't know who I am, who I'm trying to approach about a story or something. They're going to read that stuff, and whoa, who's that? They don't know. Well, it came up on Google, lazy Google search. And I'll have to write them back a letter if I'm even offered that opportunity to say, no, that's just this guy. He's butthurt because I'm anti-Zionist. And I don't, I didn't say Russia invaded Crimea like he wanted. And he's written this stuff about Glenn Greenwald and Ron Paul and all these other people. But the difference is, I don't have the background of a Glenn Greenwald who wrote for The Guardian, which is ironic, or Ron Paul, who was a congressman and had millions of dollars donated to him. I don't have that to fall back on. So if I were to live in the US, I would never be employed ever, because any employer is going to Google that, see that trash. It's like calling someone a rapist. Really, it's that bad. So yeah, it's hurt me financially. And if you're a lawyer and you want to pro bono a case and keep all the profits, I don't care. Please get in touch with me. Or if you know someone willing to sue these assholes, I definitely want to do that. But I don't have the money to do it. The Guardian should issue a correction. It was really lazy of this George Monbiot character to write this stuff. You get flack when you're over the target, though. I've been fighting for human rights my entire adult life. I've given a voice to voiceless people. I even had a magazine called Voices for the Voiceless. I was doing this before social media sites like Facebook and MySpace and YouTube even existed. I had AOL Hometown talking about Native American water rights and things like that. Starving kids in Yemen, Palestinians, whoever, wherever. I'm not a one-issue pony. I don't just focus on the war in Syria or the war in Iraq or one particular thing. You can find podcasts and interviews for Veterans Affairs, for Latin countries, for African countries, for Middle Eastern countries, Asian countries. I'll talk about North Korea, Nigeria, Somalia, Libya, Mali, Palestine, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Lebanon, Colombia, the United States, China, Japan, you name it. I've done in-depth reports on it because I've been doing this for 21 years. And that's why I'm on Press TV and RT, because I got a proven track record. What I say will happen has happened. I explained the pipeline politics back in 2012. I predicted Trump getting elected, and I said he's going to cut off funding to ISIS, which is what he did, and now they're gone. And this, don't get me wrong, Trump is a Zionist. He's got Kushner in his ear. But here's the thing, and this is why he was so much better than Hillary. Trump is more anti-Al-Qaeda than he is pro-Zionist. And so in Syria, they can't approach him and explain why he needs to continue to aid Al-Qaeda openly. Because he's not going to have it. He's like, no, we're not doing it. We spent $6 trillion in the Middle East. We're aiding people we don't even know who they are. These are his own words, okay? And even though he'll be anti-Iran, because he's got the Kushners in his ear, and he is pro-Israel, he's more anti-Al-Qaeda than anything else. He wants to bomb the S out of them, remember? So he's not going to aid them in Syria, and he didn't. And because of that, they've lost. They're out. Russia, Syria, Hezbollah, and Iran have defeated ISIS and al-Nusra Front in Syria. They have no real territories. The only spots left are the Golan Heights, where Israel is holding on as desperately as they can. And they screwed up bad. They dumped $3.5 billion into this gas line to Cyprus to compete with the Russians, and they lost 77% of their oil imports since the Peshmerga was pushed out of Iraq, and the Kurdish region of Iraq was sending their oil to Israel. That's who got the oil, not the United States. The United States imports and exports, or imports of oil from Iraq didn't change from 1999 to now. Not really. Brief pause during the war when it was physically impossible to get it, but afterward it's maintained pretty much the same level. Might be a little less, actually. You can look that up. We didn't go to war for oil. We didn't go to war for the petrodollar. We went to war for Israeli interests. The Israeli lobby has its claws deep in the neck of the American Congress and the presidency. So while as Trump will grab his ankles for Israel, he decertified the Iran deal. He talks so much trash about Iran. He even blamed them for 9/11. He's not going to help Al-Qaeda. And because of that, they don't have a way to sell the war in Syria to Trump. And that was the issue. That was the defining difference between Trump and Hillary in foreign policy. Now, if he can pass his tax plan from the Senate, that would be lovely. But probably it's not going to happen. But the real hate towards Russia is they foiled the Zionist plot in Syria. But they don't have a way to directly attack that. They can't say, but Russia's fighting Al-Qaeda. Because we're supposed to hate Al-Qaeda. They attacked us on 9/11, right? So how are we supposed to ally Al-Qaeda? How do you explain allying with Al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria? They can't. So they're asymmetric. They'll say, oh, they hacked the elections. Oh, they harbored Edward Snowden. Well, that didn't work because everyone agreed with Edward Snowden. You should know if the NSA is spying on you. So then they drum up Pussy Riot. They say, oh, well, Russia treats homosexuals like this or that. Russia does this. They are just appealing to SJWs. And it worked. And look, these Antifa crowds out there, a bunch of communists. They're not even closet communists. They're out there with the communist black and red. They'll tell you they're communists first thing out of their mouth. And they totally support the SDF in Syria. They've been sold hook, line, and sinker on these social issues. And then you have a series of gas attacks that are blamed on the regime. And there's no motive. And there's no evidence. This is just declared. And it doesn't make any sense. Assad's not going to use illegal chemical weapons to kill like 70 people in a war he's winning. It's not going to make a dime's worth of difference battlefield-wise, but it will turn the entire international community against you. However, terrorists are definitely going to use chemical weapons. They don't care about civilians one iota, and they know that it's going to get blamed on Assad anyway, which justified aid to the so-called moderate rebels. You just look at something like Aleppo. They all acted like it was a Holocaust, and they have their embedded reporters lying over and over again. This is the last fill in the blank of Aleppo. What happens? Aleppo is liberated, and they're having Christian Christmas parties in the middle of the street as soon as the government was back in charge. All these refugees that are returning to Syria, they're not going back to ISIS-controlled areas. They're going back to the areas where the government has control. It's very clear who the terrorists are and who the sovereign state is. Assad is not gassing his own people. Al-Qaeda is gassing people. Al-Qaeda got non-lethal and lethal aid from the United States, just like IranContra. And just like during IranContra when they had the Washington Post spoon-feeding the public all their lies. Shamelessly. And even when Gary Webb exposed years later one of the other angles of finance with illegal narcotics in California, the Washington Post goes after him too. The mass media is there for war propaganda. They know that's how they get ahead. They self-censor. They know how to get promoted. And that's to sell the lies that support the imperialist escapades that are done on behalf of the Zionist apartheid regime. And Russia is saying no. And that is why they're demonized. That's why they get accused of hacking the election and all the other rhetoric. And that's why they're after RT. And they want to pick on small guys like me just for appearing on their show as a tactic to smear them. And they don't care what it does to my life. Well, I gotta say, fuck you to The Guardian and PBS and all the irresponsible journalists that regurgitate that crap. I expect that from a bullshit organization like the SPLC, which is not a law center and is not even Southern. But I do expect more from a paper like The Guardian or PBS. But of course, the public broadcasting station is very heavily reliant on mega donors. And these mega donors have the wealth of the state. This is what AIPAC does. Once you can bribe yourself money, all you have to do is save a portion of that money for future bribes to get more money again. And they spread that around, which creates a donor class, who then props up all these other organizations that support your ideology, and it's a vicious cycle. That's why we have to stop the lobby. That is the center of all of this. If they don't have the lobby, they don't have Congress, and they don't get their wars. So, if you would like to join me in Washington, D.C. at the TILAP conference, TILAP means the Israeli Lobby in American Policy, on March 2nd this year, please do, because we're going to have all these great speakers talking about the power of the lobby and the crimes they've done in the past. From stealing weapons-grade uranium from the United States for Israel's illegal nuclear program, to not registering FARA not registering APAC at the ZOA under the FARA, which the DOJ still refuses to do. These are where our problems come from. It's not the Russians that are hijacking our election. It's the Israelis. All the candidates after winning the primaries went to speak to AIPAC. They didn't go to the Kremlin. They go to AIPAC. They've all put on their little yarmulke and kissed the wall. Israel influences American elections. Israel dictates American foreign policy. Israel determines what can and cannot be said in mass media. His mass media is a propaganda mouthpiece for the Pentagon. They're so beholden to big pharma and weapons companies. That's who sponsors all the MSN. They're never going to steer away from that. That's why they're scared of RT. That's why they're scared of ANC. They are. When someone like me gets smeared by the Guardian, why? What's the purpose of that? They're also going after Ted Postal and Sicily and other journalists. Why? Because they don't agree with you on the Syrian gas attack? So you're going to call them Holocaust deniers and try and evoke Alex Jones, who's a complete lunatic, or David Duke, who's a former Klansman? Which, whether or not he's changed his mind on that today, it realistically isn't going to matter, because that's like an unforgivable crime in American culture. There's nothing worse than a racist in American culture. You could touch little kids and get forgiven faster than being a racist. Hollywood's proof of that. Yeah, we have Al Franken doing selfies of his hot Cosbys and forcing his tongue down some lady's throat. I was going to cover that story, but because of these hit pieces that were brought to my attention, I thought I had to cover this stuff first. So I've had to postpone the Richard Spencer to the Woodshed video because of this mess and the Al Franken case. And I will say this, if you want to know more details about Syria, we've got a short film about that, going over the Israeli hand. It's called Syria, Israel's Invisible Hand. I co-produced it with Andrew Illingworth, who did the production and the narration. Didn't write all the narration, but it's his voice. And that is up on Vimeo on demand. Please see the link below. Buying these kind of films, it's 50-50. He's getting half the money, I'm getting half the money. But, well, 10% goes to Vimeo. But these are how we finance alternative news. When you buy the Syria film, or you buy The Empire Unmasked, or Trump's Zionist Ball and Chain, which I recommend getting that and the Syria film together, that is how we continue. That's our sole income. I can't go work for a mass media with this kind of horse shit written about me on Google, accusing me of being a Holocaust denier or a Holocaust revisionist. You know, if I lived in Europe or were to visit there and I didn't know about these hit pieces, I could be thrown in jail because it's illegal to even say that in some places. Again, if you're a lawyer and you want an easy pro bono case and you can keep all the profits, I just want to punish these people, please get in contact with me.